So to get Unreal Engine and to get up and running, you're going to open up your Epic Game Store. On the left hand side, there should be a section for Unreal Engine. If you don't have it installed, hold on, where is it? Library? Yeah, okay, you can hit in library and it's going to let you install different versions. You can also, if you want to install different versions, you can hit plus there and install a new version. Why would that be? Picking that. Oh yeah, and you can pick like the different versions here. If you want to try out UE5 demo, you can like do that and play with it and mess around. Cool. But for now, I've got 4.27 installed. It doesn't. One of the good things that I've found, this is my experience of Unreal, is that it's pretty forwards backwards compatible, which means that like if someone's on 4.26, I don't think we'll have an issue opening your files and you won't have an issue opening my file. Yeah. So this is you don't. What I'm going to say is like to get started. If you want to for today, watch my screen, and then next week. Well, over the next week, it's just to play around with things. So I'm gonna hit launch, and it's gonna take a second. It's definitely it's. Is it slower than Unity? Unity's gotten very slow lately. I need to free up space on my computer, which is something I was trying to do earlier, but I forgot to do. Cool. So you'll see recent projects here if you've worked on the Unreal Engine before. If you haven't, if I uninstall Unreal, I'll have space. I've got a 150 gigabyte folder in my downloads, so I just need to delete it. Is the actual problem. So for us, we're not going to be doing film, TV, architecture, engineering, automotive. Okay, we're focused on games, so we can hit games. That should be self-explanatory. Hit next. Now, so here's where we can look at like different types of games and the kind of things we could do or that we might want to do. You know, we can look at like these are kind of template projects for the type of game we might want to create. So if you're creating your own game, there are things to help you kind of start off with certain features basically. But we will start using first person probably even next week. Maybe not next week, but today I'm going to jump into a blank project. And one of the reasons for that is like the other projects have a bit of extra stuff in it that we don't really want. Cool. So then I'm going to hit next. So Blueprint, C++. I want this on Blueprint. I'm not going to mess with C++. I'm pretty sure you can mess with C++ even if it's a Blueprint project. Of course, I want maximum quality graphics. You can change that if you're doing scalable 3D or 2D. Ray tracing disabled. My laptop is quite old, so it's not going to be able for that. But if you can enable that, go for it. Desktop console or mobile tablet are options here. Again, we're going to work on desktop console. And we've the option of no starter content or starter content. And we're going to just hit with starter content for today. And I'm going to call this Game Tools to Intro. And I'm going to hit create. It's going to have like a default place here. And hit create project, and hopefully I have enough space for this. See how that works? Cool. Yeah, so you can see now our beautiful, beautiful chairs in our manifold default. So I'll try to run through this stuff pretty quickly. Here, we viewport options. We can see like real-time rendering and stuff like that. We can show if we want to see FPS, we can click there and we can see how fast this is rendering our chairs. We can change field of view. I'm trying to think if there's very rarely stuff I change here. The only one would be this. So sometimes you might want to hit 4 planes. Okay, and it's got to give you this view. Okay, and let's say I wasn't happy with the way these chairs were. The kind of thing I'd probably do is you can mess around with this stuff a little bit. But let's say I wanted this chair like to be over here somewhere, and I wanted it to be knocked over. It's again W to move, E to rotate, and R to scale. Okay, so I'm going to knock over this chair like that. And then I actually need to bring these views back a bit because I want to rotate the chair a bit that way. And then I'm going to go back to the top view. What was my key? Where's the best place to put this chair? And you can see there, by having the multiple views open, you kind of get a better sense of where things are, because I had not realized that chair had fallen through the ground, basically. Don't know, let's throw that there. Something like that. So again, just like that, you can kind of change things around. Yeah, if you're used to doing any CAD or SolidWorks or stuff like that, Unreal definitely has similarities to that. You can click here on the right corner of any of these viewports. So I'm going to do it on the 3D one, and it'll maximize that viewport. Okay. I killed it so that we could have a nicer scene. Perspective then is another way we can go between these. So we can hit perspective, we can look at top view, front, whatever view we want. Okay. Majority of the time you'll probably be in perspective, but definitely I find myself using the other views a little bit. Here is the different ways we can light the scene. Unlit. It looks awful, but it's really useful sometimes if you haven't put any lighting in your scene. I like the father and son chair. Brush wireframe shows us this view that shows us our like geometry of the world and what's kind of going on. Detail lighting is just showing like shadows and stuff like that, but not the actual rendering. Lighting only, I don't know what that's doing. Reflections will show us how much reflection everything is doing. Player collision is really, really useful. I've had players get stuck before where a character like is bumping into something, and if you go into this like player collision view, it's going to show you what's causing the problem, basically. Visibility collision, it's just showing you like what's occluding vision, basically. Level of detail, that's all fine. So go back to lit mode. Show, yeah, cool. So you can turn on certain things. So if you wanted to hide, let's say I wanted to see collision, I can click that and I actually see the collision boxes here while I'm watching that. And maybe I want to get rid of, can I turn off materials? No. Maybe I want to get rid of fog. Does not make much of a difference. What can I get rid of? Static meshes. So I can see the collisions, but not the static meshes. What a useful game I've made. But yeah, that's basically it. There's different things you can turn on here, post-processing, all that stuff. So you can turn off the bloom of post-processing if you don't like that. These are things just to play around with. To be honest, I very, very rarely mess with them. Normally I'm just moving around between viewports. So yeah, the hitbox view mode is really useful, especially if you're trying to work with terrain and like you're getting stuck on something. It's a really, really useful way to work. This here, as we can see, we hover over these. This is the move tool. W is our keyboard shortcut. E is our keyboard shortcut for rotate, and R is our shortcut for scale. This here is cycling between, actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate this chair a little. So if I switch this now to local, if I go to move this, it's going to move on the axis that this object is currently on. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does keep opening Steam VR. I can't remember, I have a fix for that, but I can't remember what it was because I fixed it last year. I'll have a look and see if I can remember what it is, but it's a really annoying thing it does. If you've got Steam, I think maybe my solution was to uninstall Steam VR, if I remember correctly, but that might not be something you want to do. This here is snapping options, so we can snap to the grid as we drag things around. So I'll just go back to that. Where's the four split? So I don't know if you can see there, but basically this chair is snapping as I try and move it around. If I click this button, I can move it around wherever I want in the world. Okay, so you kind of like free movement. Okay, that's all the grid snap does. You can change the grid snap value, so if you want this to snap every 100, this will... I think if you right click on this, it should realign it to the grid. Let me check. Oh, I need to remember what that shortcut is. So basically, it's going to snap, it's going to move 100 every time. Is there something there? No, that's fine. Okay, cool. So if you right click and transform, snap a line. Okay, cool. Control return will snap an object back to the grid. If I move this chair off here somewhere and hit control and return. No, maybe not. I don't know why that's not working there. I'll figure out what that hotkey is, but it's something along the lines of that. Basically, we're able to change the grid snap to whatever we want. I'll set that back to 10 because that tends to be a nice amount, because these are the big grid lines are 100 and the small ones are 10. This is basically a meter. So a big, if I zoom out, big grid lines, the heavier ones are a meter, smaller ones are 1/10 of a meter or 10 centimeters. And that is, I'm just gonna go maximize this viewport. There's also here we have the camera speed, so I'm just gonna like use my mouse key to move my mouse to move around and zoom in and out. If I set the camera speed all the way up there, the camera like zooms around the place. What's happened here is if you press F on the keyboard, you'll focus in on, same as Unity, it'll focus your viewport. Now, I've ended up clicking the skybox, and it is what I've selected, so I'm now focused on the skybox. Right? So if that happens to you, you can just come over here on the right hand side, there's the world outliner, which is the same as your hierarchy inside in Unity. I'm going to click chair and press F on the keyboard, and it's going to zoom me into it. Okay. I'm able to rotate the camera by holding down right mouse. I can move up or down by holding down the middle mouse button, zoom in and out, scrolling middle mouse button, and if you hold down the left mouse button, you can do this weird, that's maybe not that weird, but it like kind of gives you an in and out movement, and you're able to track with it. The other thing you can do is if you hold down the, oh my god, this camera speed. If you hold down the right mouse button and use the WASD keys or the SAT-W keys, you can look around as you press those keys. Okay, that makes sense. That's pretty much the viewport. We click on something, it gets selected. So if I want to select this table, or let's say I'm looking over here and I'm like, oh cool, a chair. I hit F on the keyboard and it's going to focus in on it. If you hold down Alt on the keyboard while you're looking at an object, it's going to orbit the camera around that if you left click. So I don't know if you can see there, I'm able to focus on this object and I move the camera around. If I'm not holding Alt and I do that, it's just like this sort of movement, or that. So holding Alt, it basically orbits the camera. Okay, it's definitely quite useful when you're trying to design spaces. I don't know why that chair ended up through the ground. I ended up moving everything. Cool. So that is that. So this view here, our level, what do we call that? Level editor window. That is the same as our scene view in Unity. Our world outliner here is our hierarchy in Unity. This details panel here is the same as the inspector in Unity. So if let's say I want to, let's go with this chair. Let's say I want to change the materials on this chair to rough cobblestone. I just hit that and it's going to change the materials. Yeah, cool. Okay, so now we've got a cobblestone chair statue. And that's the same as like in Unity. It's just like sorry, I've clicked off it. It's just an inspector where we're able to change stuff. I think I can even hit like couch and change it to a different game object, so it can change the static mesh that is there basically. Okay, and where this tends to be quite useful is often level designers might have like, let's say, a mesh called maybe, it might have a prefix like WB, which might stand for white box, and let's say it's called WB underscore chair, and then artists go off and make the correct chair and like it has all the detail and stuff, so then they call it like SM underscore chair. So then you just change the static mesh out for whatever you want it to be. Okay, so it allows you kind of prototype and place things and then replace them with the correct objects whenever they exist. Where are the stairs? Cool. So yeah, and you can see here stairs, this one has actually multiple textures on it, so we can actually change this here if we wanted to this color grid, which actually doesn't look good. But yeah, let's say this door material. Okay, so we can change aspects pretty quickly. And similarly, we can, I'm gonna lift this up in the air. And let's press play. Cool. So. I do have that turned off. I'm just trying to figure out why that physics isn't working. Sometimes there's a lot more stuff by default in things inside the Unreal Engine. But that's fine. We don't have to worry too much about that. Yeah, also there. What I'm doing there then, across the top here, we have different buttons. If I want to play my game and see what it's like, I can press play. Now, at the minute, I'm just moving around it in the camera I've been using. If we had made this as the first-person template, we would see that that sort of movement. We would have first-person movement around here. For now, we kind of have omnipotent movement around the space. So, and if I hit escape, it's going to take me out of that view, and it's going to leave me wherever I was looking at in the level. So we can save the scene. So if I hit save, it's going to save that. There's source control we can set up. I'm not too worried about source control this year. We might chat about it a little bit. There's different things we can do here, like I won't get into this today, but next week we'll be doing a bit of brush editing and stuff like that. But it lets us like kind of paint things and have different editor modes. Most of the time you will actually be in select mode. You hit content, that's going to open up the content browser, which is this area down here that we'll look at in a second. We can hit marketplace, and I think it'll open up the Unreal store or the Epic store, or else it'll do nothing. Yeah, it's chosen to do nothing. There are settings here for like our game, our project, and our world and things like that. Again, we'll get into this much later. Blueprints let us create like new code basically. Cinematics let us add like sequences, which is basically like just animations and stuff to our game. The build button, so it just basically kind of it like builds out our lighting and our navigation and anything like that. It's fine. Go. This should go away. Yeah. So there's a warning because I'd moved stuff around. It was giving out about issues with the lighting and level. Actually, one thing I'm just going to show is this light source. Yeah, cool. So this here is checked as atmospheric sunlight. Where is it? If I hit F on this. As I rotate this, okay, it's gonna, you can probably see there the color of the light changes a bit. So if it's pointing straight down, it's like midday. As it points at an angle, the color of the light is a bit darker and stuff. So it's like kind of a, basically like a sunlight. If I bear is the sky orb. It's not actually moving it. Let's just check here. One thing. That's fine anyway. And there's all the stuff here like reflection captures and things, which is this here, which is capturing reflected light off of these objects that lets us like kind of cast light in that way and stuff. So that's why often we've quite nice visuals inside in Unreal, because it's a little bit smarter. Now you can do stuff like this in Unity, it's just integrated a little bit better into Unreal. So that's that. The content browser then is basically your project folder from Unity. So there's starter content, because we started with that. If we hadn't have had starter content, we wouldn't have had anything here. But we can open up props, and we can drag out this, let's say, plant. We can have this, whatever it is, right there. We can add in some stairs. Okay, so we're just basically able to drag things out of here and into the world there. To show you very quickly what a blueprint looks like. This is the blueprint for the ceiling light. And what's it doing? It's setting the intensity based on a color setting. So if we drag this into the world, we should be able to see that now. Cool. So we have that there. Double click. Sorry, edit blueprint. And so we basically have this here, and we can see we've controls for brightness, color, and source radius coming from this light. Okay. There's also a little viewport inside in blueprints. So blueprints are like kind of prefabs that have their own viewport. We can do stuff, but like you don't. This is stuff I'm saying just so that you can play around with it. We're not. For this week, all I want you to do is open Unreal, play around with it, move things about, probably break things a bit. That's kind of. Week one is just get it installed, see if it works on your computer and things. Props, there's shapes, there's stuff like that. These are all just a default thing. So like there's doors and walls and stuff here too. So the other thing we have here that is a little bit different to Unity is that in Unity we would click like game object and create new game object or whatever, an empty game object. Here we can just like, let's say, drag in from this here an empty actor, and we can add things to that if we want in subcomponents. We can create cubes just by dragging them in, sphere, all that stuff. Now, one thing to be aware of, we can obviously drag in lights, and there's cinematic effects and visual effects and volumes and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but what's important here is there will be times when I say drag in a static mesh cube, and that's what this is. You can see it says it over here on the right hand side, cube 2 static mesh actor. There'll be other times I'll say, okay, we're going to use a box brush, and this is confusing because like they look the same except the icon's a little bit different. But if we're using a box brush, we're going to grab it from here. Okay, and this box brush is the thing that is that BSP, the thing we can basically move around and tweak. So if I go into brush editing mode, I can now with this selected, select say that, and if I hold W, much like Pro Builder, I can change this geometry on the go. I can hold down, I think it's shift. I can extrude this. That button, extrude it this way. And hit edit, and we can, let's say, rotate. Sorry. One of the things is it can be. Sorry, I think to rotate this, I have to select all of these dudes. these little vertices, which to select them, I am going to go for my 4 viewport mode. Hold on, wait, I'm in that mode. And now I should be able to rotate them together. I'm not sure why that's not letting me. Yeah, so I'm able to move them. So since it's not letting me rotate, then the other thing I can do is just drag a selection around that and do this. Okay. So if I was creating some sort of like vent or something like that, you can see how you use BSP to do that. So I'll maximize this again. I'll click this face. And yeah, that like kind of is it. I don't want to get too much into this stuff because we're going to be doing it anyway in a few weeks. We're going to be looking at this in a bit more detail. Next week, actually, sorry. We'll be looking at like building out environments next week using BSP brushes. Are there any questions? Are there any? I think I've covered. I've done this window. I've done all this stuff. I've done over here. Cool. Select mode. Yeah, I think I've covered all the essential stuff. But is there anything I didn't cover, or any questions anyone has there before we finish up? Yeah, for this week, the things I want you to focus on are like practicing pressing like F on the keyboard, holding down Alt to make sure you can like move the camera around comfortably. You know, move things up. Let's see. If you, I'll just check and see something here. Yeah, no, we'll actually get into some of these more detailed hotkeys as well. Yeah, we'll probably do the landscape. I think we'll get around to landscape before like we finish the module. It'll probably be fairly late on because at the start we're going to focus on working more so in indoor environments because the level design inside is a little bit easier because you've got a bit more control over the space. You have to create a full kind of roof around it. So I would recommend, if you can, installing the Unreal Engine on your own machines, if that's possible. If not, like it's just if I was able to install it on the college machines, like it would be there, but it's just not there, and I'm waiting on IT to install it. So I'd say it's useful probably to get that installed, basically. So the code is. Hold on, I'm gonna just paste both of these in. These are currently inactive, but I'll make them active there. Sorry, I'm gonna stop screen recording actually.